Okay, everybody, welcome again to another Nova Scribes. It is my pleasure to introduce JJ, JJ Rogers. Wave JJ. JJ is the Director of Product Design at Watermark. He shapes intuitive experiences that help educators maximize their impact. He's got a background in UX design. He's taught at General Assembly. He also brings a mix of hands-on experience and strategic vision. Before Watermark, he led design initiatives at a consulting agency. He drove digital transformation for Stanford's online courses and Dotdash Meredith's shift from print to digital. Just by way of a little bit of background, so Casey, who's on the line, and Sarah, who's on the line, we got to see JJ live in person and in action at the Voltage Control Summit in Austin a couple months ago. And he was so good, we just had to bring him to Nova Scribes. And he weirdly, he said yes. So JJ, it's great to have you. Over to you. What have you got for us?
Thank you so much. Great to see you all again. Yeah, this is sort of a repeat of that session that I did for Facilitation Lab Summit. So let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll get rolling. All right, my topic is radical acts of delight. For most of my career, the last decade plus, I've been on a mission to really bring more delight to my facilitated sessions and the teams that I lead. And today, what I'd like to do is go through some of those methods and share those with you. A little bit about me, as Brian mentioned, I started in product design, also known as user experience design or UX design for short. Essentially, where we're designing user interfaces for software products, services. Mostly in my field, we're looking at digital UI. In my field, in this world of user experience, there is a concept that is repeated over and over and over again. Some of you may be familiar with it, but as a designer, I'm kind of sick of hearing about it. It's incessant, and it is this concept of delighting the user. It's everywhere. It's everywhere, and it's over mentioned. It's become such a buzzword. I can't really escape it. Now, I think when I first started my career and I was really learning about this, I knew it was important. And if you asked me how to describe it, I might give you, one of these answers that you might see on the screen before you. I might tell you like, oh, delight is about anticipating the user needs, maybe, trying to exceed their expectations. Also, a big part of user experience is understanding the journey and trying to find out, where the friction is. So it might be, just trying to reduce the friction that we find when we're designing. But I learned a really cool definition recently, and that really opened my eyes to thinking differently about how I can bring delight to facilitated sessions. So I learned this from some of my colleagues in user experience. In design, within product design, we have a adjacent role. Sometimes it's a specialized role, and that is that of a user experience researcher. So researchers are going to focus on conducting quantitative analysis, quantitative and qualitative studies to really learn and understand about our users' needs, including their emotional state when they're using our products. And so if I asked a user experience researcher how they would define delight, this is what you'll likely get. Delight isn't a singular emotion. It's actually two emotions. They would describe delight as surprise plus joy. Surprise and joy, that is what makes delight. Now, I love this definition. I like this definition because to me, I think joy on its own is something that it's it's fun, it's interesting. Yes, we want to be joyful, but to surprise somebody with it, to me, that's like a challenge. And I recently ran into this definition outside of design when I was reading a book that's more closely aligned to facilitation. And that is a book called Play by Stuart Brown. Has anybody heard of this book? Read this book? Okay. So I actually didn't read the whole book, but I read a little bit of the book. And the part of the book that I read was really interesting because it talked about the different stages that we go through, that our brains go through within a state of play. I think there's something like 6 stages. But the very last stage of play was described as the pleasure state. And in it, Stuart Brown, the author of this, emphasized there's a key moment that occurs right before we're in that pleasure state. So when human beings are in play, there's a key moment right before that pleasure state, which is going to perpetuate you wanting to play more and more. And that key moment that he described is anticipation. Anticipation. And here's a really good definition of it, which I didn't bother to memorize, but I have it written down. So he says, anticipation is waiting with expectation, wondering what will happen. A little anxiety, slight uncertainty or risk has to be involved. Now that cannot be too high, but that is what leads to surprise, the unexpected discovery or idea, a shifted perspective, and the joy we find in delight. So there it is right there in print. The definition of delight is within play mode. So to me, when I found this out, I was like, oh, this is awesome. That's the key, right? We just need to play all the time. We just need to constantly play, and then that's delight. But I realized we can't do that. We have work to do. We have to solve, we have to do our jobs and solve that problem. We might have to work with that person. We're told by our bosses that we have to innovate with AI. And also, when I think about the state of play as it relates to, a professional environment, my job, working at a software company, what I do every day, and the past experiences that I have working in a more corporate environment, it really takes me back to one of my earliest core facilitator memory/trauma, where I was working for a design agency. And the design agency I was working for was really fun. It was my first job in Austin. We had a lot of cool clients, all over the US, and I got to travel a lot for them. But we always insisted, most of the work that we were doing was distributed. So we were working remotely. But we always insisted when we first set up that initial meeting with clients and we were introducing the team, doing a project kickoff, that we would do that in person. So we were largely a remote company there. And I'll never forget, there was one time we were having a kickoff with a client. And the client, for some reason, it was a Saturday, a weekend, which was very rare. We never, ever did that. But it was the only time the client could find time to get away, to fly down to Austin to meet us. So we were there kicking off this 2-day workshop on a Saturday. And we're all gathered around the conference table. And my product manager, who was facilitating the first part of the first day, stood up, introduced the icebreaker, and immediately the client stands up. I didn't fly halfway across the country on a weekend to sit here and play games. Very scary man. And it just shocked everybody. Everyone in the room just kind of stood there and, froze. And most people just couldn't look at him, wanted to crawl under the table. And I would love to tell you that we We addressed that immediately then and there and kind of leaned in the moment, but we didn't. We definitely, we folded. We're like, okay, he doesn't want to play games. So yeah, we don't need to do that icebreaker. We'll just go right into the agenda and just get to work. Not only that, but we, during the first break, I remember we went through the agenda and we just started crossing out anything that was going to be too, what we considered kind of extra, anything that was too team building or connections focused, anything that was fun. We just crossed it off the list. It was kind of a sad day. Silver lining though, we did not continue a long-term relationship with that client. But that still sticks with me. And the resistance that I hear, even in my work today, at my job, today, which I've been at for 6 years, I still hear that from folks at my company that we need to be more efficient. We don't need to do that. How can we be a little more on task? How can we, maybe move faster? So what I've done and what we'll do today is we're going to practice some of these radical acts of delight. I've designed these to be used with any type of meeting or group session. So these do not need to be simply used as a warm-up or energizer. They can actually be incorporated as a core part of your purpose or session, your core methods, when you're working with whatever you do. And these are only 3. I do have other kind of methods to delight, but today, due to timing, I want to make sure we're able to practice. So I'm going to cover 3. Are you ready for the first of 3 acts? Okay. How appropriate for this group that the very first act is drawing. Bet you didn't see that coming. Well, many of my days are filled with meetings and email and Slack messages, and I don't know if yours are too. I think, for this group, this group is really special because you all are sort of self-described visual practitioners, right? Do you know how underutilized your gifts are on the day-to-day? But in most sessions that I see, the number of times that folks are asked to contribute either verbally or by writing something down, outweighs any other form of communication. Those still kind of remain, the primaries, writing it down or just communicating it verbally. Give you a second to read that. So I think this quote does a really good job of summing up why I think it's important and why, we're not just drawing to create art. It really is about communicating differently, and the nuance that we can communicate through drawing, versus other methods. So let's practice. We're going to kick off this practice of delight by readying our brains for creative thinking. Okay, so what I'd like everyone to do is gather your supplies. You can grab paper, pens, markers, Post-its. You can draw digitally on a tablet, whiteboard, whatever you need to do. I'll give you a moment to do that, and then we'll be off. Okay, it looks like nobody's moving, so I think I can just keep going. Nobody had to run into the other room. You've all got your supplies ready. Okay, nice. Okay, first off, I would like you to draw a pig. On your paper, Post-it, sketch pad, draw a pig. I am going to time these too, so let me get my timer going. Fun fact, my grandfather once owned the largest pig farm in Iowa. Okay, I'll give you about 10 more seconds on your piggies. Okay, for your second prompt, we're going to get a little more abstract. Draw a highlight from today. All right, a little less than 10 seconds left. Wrap up your highlights. And for your final prompt, draw a professional challenge you'd like to overcome. A professional challenge. What's challenging you? Okay, you can wrap up those drawings. I actually forgot to set the timer on that last one. All right, ooh, not what I wanted to do. Okay, so we're gonna come back to this challenge in a later act of delight. So keep that one around. Let's focus on, actually, I would like to see your highlights from today. Could you all hold up your highlights to the camera? I'm gonna take a screenshot too. Look at those. themselves. Great. All right, now let me see your pigs. Let's see if I can get a screenshot of just the piggies. Okay, I think I got it, ish. So I told you that my grandfather once owned the largest pig farm in Iowa, right? Well, it's actually given me a superpower. And that superpower is I can interpret the meaning of your pig. The way in which you drew your pig tells me something about you. Hold on, gotta get the screenshot. Let's see if I got it. Okay, I sort of got some of them in the screenshot. All right. The way in which you drew your pig tells me how others see you, but also how you see yourself. So take a look at your pig. If the pig is drawn towards the top of your paper, you are perceived as positive and optimistic. If it's drawn towards the middle of the paper, you're seen as more of a realist. If it's drawn towards the bottom, you may have a tendency to behave negatively under pressure. The direction is also very important. So if you have a pig that's facing left, you believe in tradition, are friendly, and remember dates and birthdays. If the pig is facing right, you are innovative and active, but you have a poor memory for dates and birthdays. And now, if the pig is facing towards you, Brian, you are a direct person and enjoy stirring the pot to promote change. Legs, so there's some of the details too about how what you've chosen to draw. If the pig is drawn with 4 legs, that shows you are secure, you stick to your beliefs, and you've been told at least once in your life that you're stubborn. Now, if you didn't include all 4 legs, if it's less than 4 legs, that's showing you are living through a period of major change in your life. Ears are important. The larger the pig's ears, the better listener you are. And last but not least, the length of the pig's tail correlates to the quality of your personal relationships. How did I do? Did I get you? Like I said, it's a family trait. All right. So when I presented this for Voltage Controls Facilitation Lab Summit in February, we used an app actually to draw, and it's a drawing app called Pickles. You can look it up. It's actually having weird technical issues right now, but I show this slide because what they did is they did a study. So remember those user experience researchers that I talked about. They ran a study using facial sensing technology to read emotions. And what they found is that if you included this app, which allowed people to draw or doodle versus contributing, verbally or contributing, by writing, they showed that, there was an increase in both joy and surprise compared to, just a standard conference speaker. It also lowered the cognitive load. So this is pretty cool. This screenshot was taken directly from their website. And even if you, didn't participate, even if you're, not participating using this app, but you're just drawing on paper, it shows that you still get that bump in emotions. So there it is. Science, joy and surprise does go up, and we know that is the definition of delight. Pretty cool. So a couple ways in which I use this with my team. Like I said, these acts are designed to be beyond just the icebreaker, the energizer. But oftentimes, what I'll do is I'll do a combination. Where I'll have teams contribute using short words or phrases in addition to a little drawing to represent their idea or their, could be anything. Could be a problem they're looking to overcome. That way, especially for folks that I think are just a little more uncomfortable expressing themselves through doodling because they don't feel confident in it, is if you allow them to first jot down a short word or phrase and then try and express that with imagery or drawing, that it's just a little easier, kind of a stepping stone for them. But yeah, here's some examples of how I've done with my team. So right here where my cursor is, this is a teammate expressing how, she wanted to break up work into more manageable tasks to assign it and provide some sort of method for prioritizing those tasks. And so, it opens up the floor to kind of, asking questions about what she means by the different tasks and what those categories might be. Over here on the pink Post-its is one of my colleagues. I don't even remember what the prompt was here, but you can see he wrote down, I don't know if you can read this. It says remove logistical red tape. And so if you think of like somebody in a meeting or something, just contributing that idea, like we need to remove logistical red tape. Sure, sounds great, but what does it mean? Like that jargon isn't always helpful. So by him expressing it through drawing, we can kind of ask some questions and understand a much more level of detail actually. Of what he's thinking in terms of, is this people? Is this your schedule? Are there different apps? Like you wrote down some apps, like are they kind of blocking you from achieving whatever you're trying to do? So that level of detail, if you compare, really, you could be like a scientist like this, is really compare. If you give the same prompt to somebody and they communicate verbally, what comes out versus the richness and the detail that comes up when they're actually drawing to communicate. All right, without further ado, we need to move on to Act 2. Okay, so this act is perfect. So remember I talked about building anticipation as a key element to delight. So this is perfect for building some anticipation. So I trust most everyone here is familiar with The Wizard of Oz. Okay. In case you're not, it's the sequel to Wicked. So there's this scene in The Wizard of Oz where the Scarecrow's like, pointing one way. And, Dorothy comes along, does something, sees the Scarecrow, gets distracted by her dog, I think, looks up and sees the Scarecrow pointing the other way. She's like, that's funny. Wasn't he pointing the other way? And that's exactly what we're going to do, is we're going to lead our groups through, toward a particular direction, like whatever that goal is. And then we're going to go but the twist is we're actually going to end up going the opposite way first. It's not the obvious direction to go, and it may break some brains, but it does kind of force you to think a little differently, and particularly when you're dealing with people often have like the same kind of talk tracks in their head, or maybe they've kind of pre-planned the point they want to make or something. Is this really kind of breaks that and forces people to think in a different way. I came across this when I found myself gravitating towards particular facilitation methods over and over again. And I really kind of came to a realization recently, like, why do I always choose these ones? They come from this concept of inverted thinking. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with these three methods. So these are three facilitation methods written in these cards here. We have Triz. So Triz I learned through actually a voltage controls facilitation certification, but it is a liberating structure. So liberating structures is a list of sort of facilitation methods and techniques. And with Triz, the goal of that is to come up with the worst possible outcome. So rather than think about how this can be successful, think about how this can be the worst. Pre-mortem. So that I've practiced quite a bit. Actually, in my consultancy days, we would often lead a kickoff or something by doing a pre-mortem. And so this is similar. This comes from the book Game Storming. And this one is all about failure. How can you, what does failure look like, and how can you actually ensure failure? How can you ensure that, this project is going to fail before you ever focus on any of that success criteria? And then the last one, Crapstorm, is just a brainstorming technique of, rather than try and come up with just a bunch of ideas, like really intentionally try and generate as many bad ideas as possible, which can be really fun. Like I said, what all of these have in common is inverted thinking, forces you out of your normal cognitive patterns. And I think one of the reasons I was really probably drawn to these initially is because inevitably the group that I'm with tends to go towards the silly side quite often, like without prompting, right? So if you've ever had, participants where there's this kind of fear, there's a little fear of failure or perfectionism, fear of rejection, fear of criticism, whatever it is, this is a little safer exercise to get started. And we're going to practice it. All right, so what is something that we can design to practice this principle? Let's say we're going to design the world's best meeting. The world's best meeting. So we're going to twist it and design the world's worst meeting. All right, so everyone has their paper, tablets, Post-its, whatever you're using to write with. This is going to be more of a writing exercise than drawing. We are going to design the world's worst meeting together. However, this prompt is a little broad. So what I've done is I've broken it down into particular characteristics of a bad meeting. And we're going to brainstorm. So I'd like each of you to brainstorm separately on your own pad, paper, stickies, whatever you have in front of you. And I'll walk you through an example. So the first prompt is going to be, how might you provide unclear communication to increase confusion among your participants? So I practiced this with my team, and here's a couple answers I got. You could whisper instructions, like the telephone game, from one person to the next. And then another person volunteered. You could give directions using whale noises, like Dory in Finding Nemo. So you get the idea. I have 4 separate prompts, and all you have to do is answer the prompt. The twist has already happened. Like, we already twisted it by saying we're going to design the world's worst meeting. So you just have to answer this prompt as it's written. Are you ready? Let me put some timing on the clock. And away we go. Try and come up with as many ideas that you can think of to provide unclear communication to increase confusion among your participants. I'm playing a little music. Let me know if it's too loud or you can't hear it.
I can't hear music.
Okay, thank you.
JJ, would you like me to provide a little music?
Sure, that'd be great.
Actually, I don't know if I can do it while you're sharing your screen.
I think I can do it. I just have to share sound.
Here you go.
I think I got it. Good? Okay, awesome. Okay, that's the end of the first prompt. Let's move on to prompt number 2. So this one, how might you avoid conflict and difficult conversations altogether?
I can't wait to wake up in the morning to try something new. A lot of times I can't sleep because
Okay, we're going to move on to our third prompt. How might you create a space that encourages silence and non-participation? What ideas do you have for that? All right, and moving on to our fourth prompt. How might you ensure your personal opinions influence the group's decisions? Your personal opinions influencing the group's decisions. All right. And we'll wrap up that last prompt. Pause the music. Okay. So this is a good sized group. I don't think we're going to need to use breakout rooms after all. So I'm curious, how was that experience? Thumbs up? All right. Well, what I would love is I would love you to take a look at all of your amazing, silly, fun ideas to make your meetings truly awful. Look through your responses, and I want you to choose two of your ideas that you feel are the most share worthy, or they're ones that you think are fun ideas. Any idea could be for any of the prompts, across any of the prompts, just 2 ideas to make your meetings truly suck. Okay, I think most everyone has them. Some people might still be thinking, that's okay. Let's start. So if you would like to volunteer your 2 ideas, come off mute, share the 2 ideas with the group here.
Looks
So
like
Sarah, I see you.
Sarah's
Go
ready.
ahead. Yep,
Oh.
Sarah's raised her hand.
So my favorite were hand out 3 pages of single spaced instructions and have everyone read it for themselves. And then the other one I thought I really liked was to call the meeting to order and then immediately tell everybody to go home. Those
Nice.
those are my great ideas.
Those are awesome. All right, let's go over. I'm just gonna go in the order of my screen that I see. Brian, would you like to share a couple ideas?
Yeah, I would say either overloaded visuals or no visuals,
Mm-hmm.
finding the right balance, and then finally over facilitating.
Okay. Over facilitating, like, tell me more about that.
So if you've got an hour-long meeting, that the facilitator speaks for 50 minutes.
Oh, okay. Mhm. All right. Nancy, would you like to share a couple ideas?
I said choose a venue where you have a gigantic auditorium but have only 4 people at the meeting. So clearly the wrong venue.
Mm-hmm.
I also said you could send out minutes before you hold the meeting. That would encourage silence and ensure everybody agrees with you.
Mm-hmm. Great. Abby, you're right in the middle of my screen.
Mine are a bit snarky. Just gonna call that out.
Love it.
The first one was a response to avoiding conflict and difficult conversations, and it was toss out your morals and just listen to those in power. And the other one was in response to ensuring your personal opinions influence decisions, uh, bribery and blackmail, kind of seeding the ideas in advance of the meeting and then ensuring that they go through bribery.
Bribery works. I mean, I brought donuts to a meeting for that very purpose in the past. All right, Christina, you got a couple ideas for us?
Well, I do have one, and this actually happened. A whole day event where a team was facilitated through kind of like planning out how they're going to work in the future of work. And they presented that to be told that they were wrong and that is not the conclusion they should have come to, and that this is the way we're going to work going forward.
Oh, no. Thank you for sharing. Tim, what are your ideas?
Great ideas, everybody. I said communicate only using hieroglyphics for number one, unclear communication. Sometimes it might feel like that with too much jargon and so on. The other one is, avoid conflict. You must have a poker face, no emotional expression or connection. Poker face.
Yes, thank you. Scott, what you got?
Well, first, I made a note about Abby, my friend, saying bribery and blackmail. That shocked me a little bit. But anyway, my two were yell at the attendees consistently and constantly look at your watch.
Mhm. All right, thank you. And Anna, bring us home.
Mines are have a buzzer to every time someone participates, you say wrong, like and sometimes people do that with their face. They don't say wrong, but they do that with their face. And the other is go change the subject every 10 minutes, no matter what is happening. You have an agenda that changes every 10 minutes, and whatever is happening, you change the topic to the next.
That'll do it. That'll definitely do it. So it sounds like some of you have been in some meetings. This is kind of from experience a little bit. Interesting. All right, so this was my share slide. Thank you for sharing. What we're gonna do, so yeah, I mean, I think, with this, what is really great about this is it can feel kind of low stakes to be throwing out, trying to do the opposite of what your goal is. It's kind of easier for people. And then also, like I said, you got to kind of listen for, the little giggle in the corner when someone comes up with an idea. That's like a really good sign when you're doing an activity like this. Okay, so I want you to be able to practice. So we practice kind of, designing the world's worst meeting. But I want you to practice actually writing the twist part because I think that is kind of an essential part of this. So remember when we were drawing our challenge we were looking to overcome. I want you to practice twisting the challenge. So whatever that challenge was for you. So here's some example challenges I have written on these Post-its. Again, these are written with facilitators in mind. So, perhaps the challenge is I want to ensure my meetings start on time, or I want to ensure my Zoom participants are more engaged, or I want to create a safe space for experimentation and learning. How we would flip those is try and find the opposite. Rather than start on time, they start late. Rather than participants be more engaged, how can we ensure they stay distracted? Or rather than create a safe space, how can we demonstrate it's not okay to make mistakes? So just jot down your facilitation challenge and take a minute and try and find the opposite of what that would be. What would you do, or how would you phrase the opposite goal? Okay. All right, I'm going to close out the twist, the second radical act of delight, by just mentioning that the reason I do love this is because ultimately, the twist going in the opposite direction is kind of just a starting point. I mean, ultimately, we do want to bring our groups towards the original goal of what we're trying to achieve in whatever way we plan to. And by practicing this and kind of going the opposite first, what that does is ultimately the conversation is going to be a little more richer because people have kind of thought through this sort of divergent, different way of thinking and aren't just going into their usual, track. Also more, I believe more trust gets built. Because you kind of had this moment doing this activity that maybe felt a little silly. And it does add more of a richness to the conversation too. And all that trust, will carry over when you actually do go towards the primary goal. All right, we are right on time. I'm going to move into Act 3, which is creative connections. So this is actually my favorite act of delight, and I learned this going into art school. Kind of related to happy accidents or seeing, sometimes, accidents can be very, very meaningful, or, seeing connections that maybe aren't logically there. So so overall, this concept comes from lateral thinking, which if you, Google or Chat GPT these days, there's a lot of depth to this concept of lateral thinking. And to me, I think it's easier to actually practice it to really understand, what it is, linear versus lateral thinking. I do like this kind of metaphor for it is if you think about a person digging, linear thinking, logical thinking is digging kind of deeper. You dug a hole and you're just digging deeper in the same hole. And you're just going deeper and you're finding things that are very connected to that topic or, whatever. It's very logical thinking. But lateral thinking is rather than choosing to continue to dig in one spot, is you choose to dig over here next, and then over here next, and then over here. So you're actually, you're not, it's not things that are directly related or short, following the shortest neural pathways in our brains, because the brain likes to follow the shortest neural pathway to create logical connections. Lateral thinking is really trying to come up with something that is totally different, something you never would have planned. And the brain definitely does not naturally want to make that leap. It's illogical. It wants that shortest pathway. But sometimes we can coax it into making a connection to something very unexpected. And we can get, these cool aha moments from that. So that's what we're going to go through next. I've practiced this with my team. One example was using tarot. It was a really fun activity. A team of designers recently, we used tarot cards to draw conclusions about team dynamics. Actually used ChatGPT for this. Asking a question, pulling a random tarot card, trying to, draw conclusions about the meaning of the tarot and the problem that we were experiencing, simply for the purpose to spark some inspiration and evaluate some of, what was brought to the problem based on the randomness of this activity. So what we're going to be doing today is not using tarot cards, but we will be using metaphors to gain new insight on our facilitation challenge. So we'll be using metaphors to inspire us to think differently, to inspire us with new ideas. Things that you wouldn't have otherwise associated with your challenge that you're looking to overcome. Now these metaphor cards are I have a variety of them. I do have them available if y'all want to download them. I don't have a great way to digitally hand them out and have you, randomly select them like from a deck of cards. So we'll all be using the same metaphor card, which will be selected randomly to go through this challenge. Well, we're going to go through a few different metaphor cards, but it's going to look like this. So you have your challenge. I don't know what your challenge is, but here's this example challenge. Provide a better training program for my nonprofit. So that's the challenge, written on a Post-it. And we randomly assigned a metaphor. This was just drawn randomly. What if that challenge that we have written down was more like taking care of plants? Taking care of plants, it's like you have to prune them. You can see the health of the plant generally, related to your maintenance program, and it grows. Hopefully you see growth over time. So how is this challenge like this metaphor? What if this challenge was more like this metaphor? What would that inspire us? How would that inspire us to overcome that challenge? And for this metaphor creative connections activity that we're going to do, I'm going to have you come up with an idea, and then I also want you to draw that idea. So we're going to bring back the sketching that we did in the first radical act. So you're going to write down an idea that sparked from this, and then you're going to draw an idea, and you're going to come up with multiple ideas per metaphor. Now, when I first did this, I was so impressed with how this worked. We were doing a design, not a design sprint, like design thinking session with this nonprofit. And this nonprofit CEO was, had this exact challenge. I'm working for a challenge on her training program, trying to get her staff trained on this, very deep subject matter. And she pulled a metaphor and got taking care of plants. And she drew this. This is what she drew. So she drew this little plant, with a little leaf on it, and then she drew one a little bigger, getting watered, and then this really big one in this giant pot. And she described her new training program. She said, "Here's my solution. We're going to have 3 different levels of training. We're going to have a foundational level of training where, just like the little seedling that is planted in a pot, just needs kind of that that first initial soil and everything that it needs to get started. The second training is going to be more of a maintenance training, just like you water a plant, weekly or on a bi-weekly basis to maintain it. But then also every so often, once a quarter, a year, I don't remember, we need to do kind of a big reset, based on the training program that she had and some of the various needs on that. She likened that to, it's like when a plant gets so big, you need to repot it. It was pretty amazing to see that come out of this creative connection game. And when she explained it, I was like, did you have this in mind before this? No, I just thought of it. It was pretty cool. Now, not every metaphor is going to be a winner like this. You really have to go through and explore different ones and just kind of see what comes up, see what ideas you can work off of. And it works really well too, working in group settings, kind of passing different ideas to different folks and seeing how you can build off of each other's ideas. So we're going to start by looking at your challenge. So I want you to grab your challenge. Okay, your original challenge, not your twisted version. We were practicing the twist, but you can kind of put that aside, throw that away. So whatever that original challenge you were looking to overcome is, make sure that's written down and you can see that in front of you on your workspace to reference. Okay. Then we're going to draw a metaphor card. And you're going to liken the challenge to the metaphor to come up with an idea to solve your challenge. You're going to do both writing and drawing to represent your idea. And you can come up with as many as you want. There's no limit. I am going to put a timer on this. And we're going to go through a few rounds. So we're not just going to do a single metaphor. We're going to do, hopefully we can get through at least like 4 rounds or something. I'll do at least 2 minutes per metaphor, so you really have time to think about it. Not that that's a whole lot of time. Okay, are you ready? Let's try it. Let's try it. Okay, so you're all going to use the same metaphor. I will show you the metaphor, but it's got to be chosen at random. Video game controller. Okay, so I have, let me zoom out here. Video game controller. It's right here. Okay, so what if your challenge was more like a video game controller? You can read the card as is. I'm going to put 2 minutes on the clock. Write down and draw your ideas. 2 minutes. Okay, we are at 2 minutes. So I'm going to pick a different one. Hide this choice. What will the next one be? It is going to be a movie producer. Cool. What is a movie producer? It is over here. Okay. So what if your challenge was like a movie producer? Now, these descriptions are just kind of helpers to help you kind of understand some of the features or characteristics of a movie producer, but certainly you can use your own interpretation of what that means to you. 2 minutes starts now. Okay, I'm going to try another one. The random connection will be 2. Orchestra. An orchestra. How is your challenge like an orchestra? 2 minutes. Okay, that 2 minutes went fast. All right, we'll do one more. And this will be our last one. Let's pick a good one. Come on, come on, come on. Crossing guard. Okay, crossing guard is up over here. What if your challenge was more like a crossing guard? All right, finish wrapping up your idea. Finish drawing, finish writing it. All right, well, I would love to know how that went for you. And yeah, that was our last radical act. Hopefully that sparked some good ideas for you, different ideas that maybe you didn't think of. Would anyone be open to sharing about their experience, an idea that came up, maybe what kind of inspired it, what direction they went in?
Feel free to call on somebody, JJ.
All right. Tim, raise your hand. Go for it.
Yeah, share something. That was really fun. So, I mean, yeah, lots of insights in different ways of looking at the challenge. And I don't know, I mean, for me, I saw lots of opportunities to create like signage, directional signage, manuals, guiding structures to support, to support the moving forward in the challenge. It's more of an HR challenge. How do we build and scale a team
Okay.
effectively? So like design a journey, design signage, make it stand out like the crossing guard. So lots of different image related solutions, right? Or associations in there.
I love that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it was fun.
Cool. Anybody else?
I
Abby.
can go.
Yeah.
One thing I really loved playing with was the director concept, and it led me to thinking about movie posters. And my challenge was all around like my own life balance, schedule, capacity, and things like that. And I think the biggest aha was some of the best movies are not sequels and they're not remakes. So I think that that was just really inspiring to think about, like, as a lot of us are independent business owners and contractors, and our lives might look a little bit different than maybe the traditional way that work used to look. So, and that's okay. And it's good to have it not just be another sequel and be able to actually make a new movie. So, a lot of it felt like inspirational quotes and drawings that I just drew to myself. So, it was lovely. Thank you.
Cool. Cool. Well, I'm glad those came up.
Hey, JJ, it's Scott. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'm a member of the National Cartoon Society, and on the movie producer one, it made me think of how are we going to increase membership? And that sparked me to think that we have somebody who does storyboarding for movies, who's the chair of our regional chapter. So could we use his storyboarding to make it interesting, promotional, to try to get people to increase membership? So this has been interesting, both segments, but in each case, something popped in my head that I would not have come up with arbitrarily.
I love that. Anybody else want to share? Cool. Well, I will wrap us up then. Yeah. I think in conclusion, as you practice some of these delighters, starting off easy like drawing, which I guess is really easy for this group. Maybe the more advanced ones like the twist or random connections are kind of new for you. Yeah, I encourage you to, practice this and bring it to your teams. And, it really is a practice. And if you want more, like information around, like, for example, the metaphors, I do have the metaphor cards available where you can print them. Right here, I put the link in the chat so you can print them. I am working on trying to come up with a digital version of them. But you can also create your own, like I started with just a few that I gathered from different design activities I participated in, and then just kind of grew it, over time, trying to find different ones that I thought most, metaphors that most people would kind of understand, kind of had broader appeal. But, it's totally whatever you want it to be. So thank you all for showing up. This was delightful.
Okay, let's
Thanks
give
for having
JJ a big Nova Scribes. Thank you very much. Thank you, JJ. And I'll go ahead and stop the recording.